The sky over New Earth City was dark, filled with storm clouds and silent drones floating like shadows. It had been 10 years since the war between humans and the Zalari ended. Millions had died, cities were burned, and nothing felt safe anymore. Now both sides were tired of fighting. Peace talks had started, but no one truly believed they would work. At the heart of these talks stood one man, Supreme Chancellor David Rain. He was not a hero to everyone. Some hated him for what he did during the war, but others saw him as the only reason Earth was still standing on this cold morning. A spaceship arrived, quiet and silver like a falling star. Inside was the Zalari diplomat, Valara. She looked human enough, tall, beautiful, with glowing violet eyes. But she was not here for peace. She was sent with a secret mission, to seduce the Chancellor, get close, and weaken him from within. Valara stepped out of the ship with grace. Soldiers pointed guns at her, unsure if she was dangerous, but she smiled gently, raised her hands, and spoke in perfect English. "I come for peace," she said. Her voice was soft, but her heart was cold. From a tall tower nearby, David watched her arrival. His face showed no emotion. He had met many aliens. But something about Valara felt different. He ordered his guards to let her through. Their first meeting was behind a large glass wall. Two powerful figures on opposite sides of a table. Valara smiled, pretending to be polite. David watched her, silent and sharp, like a man who trusted no one. "You're younger than I expected," she said. David didn't smile. "And you're exactly what I expected," he replied. She laughed, but inside, she was scanning the room, memorizing faces, exits, security cameras. She had trained for this moment her whole life. Her people wanted Earth to fall without firing another shot, and she was the weapon. But something strange happened in that room. For a brief moment, as their eyes met, Valara felt something she couldn't name. It wasn't love or fear. It was curiosity. David ended the meeting early. "You'll be staying here during the talks," he said, handing her a key card. "There are rules, follow them." She took the card, pretending to be calm, but inside, she was already planning her next move. Late that night, in her room, Valara opened her secret communicator. A small blue light glowed from her bracelet. She spoke in her native language. Target contact made. She whispered, "Mission moving forward." Her commander replied instantly. "Good. Gain his trust, break him. Make him forget who he is." Valara nodded, but didn't answer. Her mind was still thinking about David's eyes, how they looked tired, but strong. She reminded herself this was just part of the job. He was just a mission, nothing more. The next day, David invited her to walk through the city. She agreed, pretending to enjoy the tour. Children ran past them, laughing. Old men nodded at David with respect. Valara saw how much people trusted him, and how lonely he looked among them. She asked him, "Do you always walk without guards?" He replied, "Only when I need to remember who I'm fighting for." His answer surprised her. It was not the answer of a cold leader, but of a man who cared deeply. Later that evening, she sat alone and replayed the day in her mind. She didn't report everything to her superiors. Some part of her didn't want them to know the full truth. That was dangerous, but she couldn't help it. Suddenly, there was a knock at her door. A guard handed her a note. It was from David. "Dinner tomorrow. Private meeting," it said. No explanation, no official reason, just an invitation. Valara stared at the note for a long time. Then she smiled, not the fake smile she used in public, but a real one, small and unsure. She was supposed to play him, break him, manipulate him, but now, just a few days into the mission, the game was already changing, and she didn't know why. That night, she stood at the window, looking at the stars. Her communicator blinked again. Another message from command. "Update status," it said. She turned it off without replying, and whispered to herself, "He is not what we expected." Valara stood in front of the mirror. The silk of her earth clothes touched her skin softly. But nothing about this planet felt soft to her. Everything felt loud, busy, and full of hidden emotions. She had been on Earth for only 5 days, and already she was feeling strange. It wasn't the food, or the language, or even the weather, it was him. Chancellor David Rain, the man she was sent to seduce, control, and destroy from the inside. He was supposed to be arrogant, weak, easy to manipulate, but he wasn't. He was cold, smart, and something she hadn't planned for human. In ways she didn't understand, that evening, she entered his private hall for dinner. No guards, no advisors. Just the two of them. The lights were dim, the table set with simple food. He didn't smile, didn't joke. He just stared at her and asked, "Why are you really here?" Valera paused. She gave the answer she was trained to give. "To build peace," she said smoothly. David nodded slowly, like he didn't believe her. But he didn't argue. The dinner was quiet. He talked about Earth's future, the hope for rebuilding. She listened carefully, searching for weak points in his words. But instead, she found strength. Not military power, not weapons heart. And it was dangerous because it was pulling her in later. She walked alone in the garden. She opened her hidden communicator and began her report. "Chancellor's mind is steady," she said. "Access is limited, but trust is forming." She paused, then changed the next part. "His emotional control is poor," she lied, affecting his judgment. It was the first time she had altered a report, and it would not be the last back on the Zalari mothership. Her commander read the message. He smiled, believing she was winning, believing the human was breaking. He sent back a short order. "Proceed with emotional fusion, then eliminate target." Valera read it with a blank face, but inside, her thoughts were burning. Eliminate. That word echoed in her chest like a scream. Meanwhile, on Earth, David sat in his private quarters. He stared at an old photo, his wife and son. Lost during the Zalari attacks, he had buried them before. The war ended. He hadn't smiled since. He hadn't trusted anyone since. And now here was an alien in his house, sharing meals, asking personal questions. And he didn't understand why he was letting her in. The next morning, Valera visited a human school with David. The children laughed, pointed at her strange eyes, asked if she could fly. She played along, smiled at them, told them stories from her star system. David watched from a distance. She looked real, not like an enemy, not like a spy, but like someone who belonged later. One of David's security officers pulled him aside. "She's hiding something," he warned. "We checked her signal log. She's communicating with someone off-world." David didn't react, but inside, a wall went up. He nodded slowly. "Keep watching," he said. "Don't alert her yet." That night, Valera returned to her room and found a gift on her table. A small plant, something native to Earth, the note said. "For peace to grow, something must take root." There was no name, but she knew who sent it, and she hated that it made her smile. She sat quietly thinking she should have reported the school trip, but she didn't. She should have ignored the gift, but she watered it. She should have stayed focused, but her thoughts were slipping. She whispered to herself, "You're getting weak." But her voice didn't sound sure anymore. At midnight, she received another message from her people. "Has the human fallen?" She stared at it for a long time, then typed back, "Almost." It was a lie. The truth was, she was the one falling. Cliffhanger ending for part 2. In a hidden control room deep beneath the Earth Council building, a human technician froze. He looked at the latest signal data. "Sir," he said into his radio, voice shaking. "She's not just talking to her command, she's lying to them." Valera walked through the silent halls of the Earth Council building. Each step echoed like a quiet question. She had been on this planet for 10 days now, 10 long. Strange days filled with things her training never prepared her for. She passed a mirror and paused. Her reflection stared back. Perfect hair, calm face, sharp posture. But it wasn't real anymore. Behind the alien mask, something new was growing, something human. That morning, David had invited her to a private facility in the mountains. No cameras, no guards, just him, her, and a long ride through cold air and endless trees. They sat in silence inside the transport shuttle. He looked out the window, arms crossed. She watched him quietly, unsure what today meant. Finally she asked, "Why bring me here?" David didn't answer at first. Then he said, "You want to understand Earth, right?" She nodded. "Then you should see where the war really ended." He said. They arrived at an old, abandoned command base. Rust covered the walls. Bullet holes still scarred the steel doors. Inside there was no power, just darkness and silence. David led her to a deep underground room. There, she saw them, names, thousands of names carved into the walls. "Soldiers?" She asked. "No," he replied. "Civilians." Innocent lives lost in the final days. Valera walked closer, reading the names with quiet breath. Children, parents, elders, whole families erased. "This is why I fight for peace," David said softly. "Not because I trust your kind, but because I never want this again." Something inside her chest shifted, a pressure, unfamiliar and unwelcome. She wanted to tell him that her people have losses too, that pain wasn't only human. But for once, she stayed silent. Later that night, she sat on a bench outside the base. The stars above looked different here, closer. David joined her with 2 cups of hot tea. They sat side by side in the cold wind. He asked her something no one else had. "What do you miss about your home?" She stared at the sky, surprised. No one had ever cared to ask her that. She answered quietly, "The sound of the wind through the crystal fields." "It sings," she added with a soft smile. David sipped his tea and nodded. "I miss laughter." He said, "My son used to laugh so loud it shook the windows." They didn't speak after that. They just sat together, not as enemies, not as allies, but as 2 broken people from 2 broken worlds. But while this moment changed something deep inside her, danger was rising elsewhere. In a dark room under the council tower, Agent Kellen, Earth's top intelligence officer, stared at a data screen. Valera's messages had been decoded, and something didn't make sense. "She's reporting false updates," Kellen said aloud. "She's lying to her own people." He leaned back, confused. Was she playing both sides? Or was something more dangerous happening? He made a silent choice. Track her every step, every breath. Because if she flipped sides, she could become Earth's most powerful weapon, or its greatest threat. Back in the mountains, Valera slept uneasily in her guest room. Her dreams were strange, filled with David's voice, her commander's warnings, and the sound of the crystal wind. She woke up in the night, heart racing. She wasn't afraid of the mission anymore. She was afraid of failing him. The next morning, they returned to the city as they walked through the landing bay. A child ran up to them and handed Valera a flower. "Welcome to Earth," the girl said, smiling. Valera took it with shaking hands. A small piece of beauty from the world she was sent to break. Later that day, she opened her communicator again. The usual question blinked on the screen. "Status?" She typed slowly. "Trust is deepening," she wrote, then added a lie. "Target shows signs of emotional confusion," and for the first time, she hesitated before sending it. She was no longer sure who the target was, him or herself. Asterisk. Sky above New Earth City was clear, but below the surface, war was whispering again. Valera stood in the grand hall of the Earth Council. Light poured through the windows, but her mind was full of shadows. She had been here for 2 weeks now, and the mission that once felt clear had become a storm she could no longer control. She was supposed to be a spy, a tool for deception, but now she was walking a path that didn't belong to either side. Not Earth, not Solari. She was somewhere in between, alone, and worse, unsure. Her communicator buzzed silently on her wrist. A new message from Solari Command. Final phase. If emotional bond is confirmed, eliminate the target within 72 hours. She stared at the words, not moving, not breathing. This wasn't just an order, it was a countdown. That evening, David called her to the rooftop garden of the council tower. The sun was setting behind the silver buildings. He stood near the edge, arms resting on the railing. Valera joined him, her footsteps light, but her thoughts heavy. David didn't turn around. He spoke without looking at her. "I know you're not telling me everything." She froze. "I've seen the security reports," he continued. "Your signal logs are fake. You're editing your own messages." She opened her mouth to explain, but no words came out. "I should have locked you up the moment I knew," he said, his voice sharp. "But I didn't, and I keep asking myself why." Valera stepped forward slowly. "There's more to this than you know," she said softly. "There are things I was told to do, but I didn't, because they were wrong." David finally turned to face her. His eyes were tired, but burning. "You were sent here to destroy me," he said. "And now you expect me to believe you've changed?" She lowered her gaze. "I didn't expect to feel anything," she whispered. "But I do." David didn't reply. He just walked past her and left the garden, and for the first time, Valera didn't feel like a spy. She felt like someone who had broken something she didn't know how to fix. Back in her room, her communicator blinked again. But this time, it wasn't a message. It was a signal, encrypted, unfamiliar, aggressive. She decoded it quickly, her fingers shaking. A new agent had landed, code name, Draxon. He was Zilari, like her, but older, colder, a soldier, not a diplomat. And he had only one mission: execute the target. If Valera failed, her heart sank. This wasn't just politics anymore. This was blood. Elsewhere in the city, Agent Kellen, the Earth intelligence chief, followed the same signal. He tracked the location, intercepted a brief audio pulse. Target designated for termination. Backup agent in position. He stormed into David's office. "Sir, your life is in danger," he said. "There's another Zilari operative in the city." David stood up calmly. He didn't panic. He simply asked, "Is Valera part of it?" Kellen hesitated. "We don't know." David gave no orders. He just stared at the city skyline. But his silence spoke louder than a scream. That night, Valera ran through the lower streets of New Earth City. She had to find Draxon before he found David. She knew how he worked: quiet, fast, and cruel. He wouldn't wait for approval. He would strike the moment the target was alone. She reached the council tower, breathless. Security stopped her. She lied, cried, begged, but no one let her in. Then she saw it. A flash of movement on the rooftop garden. She knew that shadow Draxon. Without thinking, she sprinted up the emergency stairs. Her lungs burned, her legs shook. But she didn't stop. When she reached the top, she saw him. Draxon stood just a few steps behind David, silent, armed, ready. Valera didn't scream, she didn't warn, she just ran. In one motion, she threw herself between Draxon and David. A bright flash, a single shot, and everything went silent. David dropped to the ground, catching Valera in his arms. Blood soaked her side, her eyes wide with pain. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you do this?" She smiled weakly and whispered, "Because I fell." The hospital lights were too bright, too clean, too quiet. They made David feel like he couldn't breathe. He stood outside the emergency wing, his suit stained with Valera's blood. Doctors moved around him like shadows, speaking in low voices. "She's stable," one of them finally said, but the shot came close to her heart. "She may not wake up." David didn't respond. He just stared through the glass at the woman in the bed. The woman who had lied to him, betrayed him, and then saved his life. What kind of enemy takes a bullet for you? What kind of spy bleeds for their target? David didn't have answers, only questions that burned like fire in his chest. Elsewhere, in the council's security room, Agent Kellen was reviewing the rooftop footage. He paused at the moment Valera jumped. He replayed it 3 times, each time the same result. She didn't hesitate, she didn't wait, she didn't try to run. Kellen leaned back in his chair, confused and angry. "She was supposed to be the threat," he whispered. "Now she's the one dying." Back in the hospital, David finally stepped into Valera's room. She looked smaller now, fragile. Nothing like the confident alien diplomat who had first walked into his life. He sat beside her, watched her breathe, and whispered, "Who are you really?" As if hearing him, her fingers twitched. Then her lips moved. Her voice was broken, but clear. "I lied to you," she said. Her eyes opened slowly, dark, tired, honest. David didn't move. He waited. She kept speaking. "I was sent to control you," she whispered, "to twist your mind, to break your will." He closed his eyes. He already knew it, but hearing it still hurt. "But I couldn't do it," she said, "because the more I watched you, the more I felt." David looked at her, anger rising. Felt what? Pity? Curiosity? She shook her head gently. "No," she said. "Love." The word hit him like a punch. He stood up, turned away. "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect anything," she said. "I just needed you to know before they finish what I failed to do." David turned back sharply. "Who?" "Another agent," she said. "His name is Draxon. He won't stop. And now that I've betrayed them, they'll come for me too." David walked toward her, voice cold. "You should have told me everything from the start." "I was trained to lie," she replied. "But you changed that." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, not as diplomat and chancellor, not as alien and human, but as two people standing on the edge of something dangerous and real. Then the door opened. Agent Kellen stepped inside. "She can't stay here," he said. "The council wants her arrested, questioned, maybe executed." David stepped in front of Valara. "No," he said firmly. "She stays under my protection." Kellen looked at him like he'd gone mad. "She's the enemy." "She was," David replied. "But now she's the only one telling the truth." Kellen didn't argue. He just left the room with a warning. "If you're wrong, David, she won't be the only one who bleeds next time." That night, David moved Valara to a secret facility outside the city. It was the same place where the peace talks had first started. Now it would become a shelter and maybe a battlefield. As Valara rested in the quiet room, she looked out the window. The stars seemed farther away than ever. She whispered to herself, "I don't belong to them anymore." And somewhere deep inside, she feared she might not belong to Earth either. She was trapped between two worlds, and the only person she could trust was the man she was meant to destroy. Asterisk. The stars looked colder that night, as if even the galaxy knew what was coming. David Rain stood in front of a hidden door deep beneath the Earth Council archives. His hand pressed against the scanner, and it opened with a low hiss. Behind him, Valara walked slowly, her side still weak from the gunshot wound. She was healing, but true trust was slower to repair. "This place isn't on any map," David said. "It was built before the war, when we still thought peace was easy." Valara stepped inside. The room was filled with old tech, dusty terminals, and secret data vaults. It didn't feel like safety. It felt like a place where truth goes to hide. "Why bring me here?" she asked. David looked at her. "Because you're the only one who knows what the Zalari are really planning. And because I can't protect you from inside the council anymore." He pulled out a tablet and showed her something. Satellite images, intercepted signals, enemy movements. Valara recognized it all. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was bigger. "Your people are preparing something," David said. "A strike, maybe even a planetary event. And Earth's leaders are too busy arguing to see it." Valara stepped closer to the screen. "They're not planning to negotiate anymore," she said. "They're planning to end the talks permanently." David leaned forward, voice low. "Then we stopped them, together, for a moment." Neither of them spoke. Two enemies, standing shoulder to shoulder, planning to fight a war neither of them wanted. But trust doesn't grow from nowhere. It grows from sacrifice, pain, and choice. "You're risking everything," Valara said. "Your title, your planet, your life." David gave a small, tired smile. "I've already lost more than I can count," he replied. "This time, I'd rather lose it all fighting for what feels right." Outside, in the shadows of New Earth City, Agent Draxon moved silently through the streets. He had eyes on every building, ears in every network, and now he had a trace. He followed Valera's hidden communicator code. One pulse, one blink, one mistake, and he knew exactly where to go. Back in the bunker, Valera was unlocking ancient Zilari files from David's stolen terminal. She decrypted something old, something dangerous. It was a peace protocol, hidden by the Zilari Council themselves. Proof that peace had once been agreed, then buried. They never wanted peace, she said quietly. They wanted control. David stared at the screen. We show this to the world, he said. They won't be able to hide it. Valera hesitated. If we do that, I can never go home again. David looked at her. You already can't, he said, and neither can I. At that moment, alarms echoed through the underground base. Motion sensors triggered, security lights flashed. Draxon had found them. David grabbed Valera's arm. Run, he said. They moved through dark tunnels, the old base groaning around them. Draxon followed with the silence of a shadow. Every step he took was death in disguise. In the escape tunnel, Valera stopped suddenly. I know a way to delay him, she said. No, David said firmly. You're not dying for me again, she smiled weakly. Not for you, she whispered. For the choice I finally made. But before she could act, David pulled her through the tunnel door. He sealed it behind them with a manual override. The door locked just seconds before Draxon reached it. Inside the tunnel, Valera looked at him, confused. You were willing to risk the whole planet to kill me a few days ago, she said, and now you're protecting me like your life depends on it. David didn't blink. Maybe it does, he said. They reached a hidden airlift at the edge of the city, and as the platform rose into the night sky, they stood together in silence, enemies no longer. Something else now, something not quite lovers, not quite allies, but deeply, dangerously connected. Above Earth, the sky burned with silent ships. The Zilari fleet had entered orbit, not with banners of peace, but with weapons armed and ready, and below them, Earth's leaders argued over screens and reports. No one agreed, no one acted. The world was watching and doing nothing. But deep in the mountains, away from politics and panic, David and Valera stood at the edge of an ancient launch platform. In front of them sat a craft that had been forgotten by time, half human, half Zilari. Technology, a ghost from a past where peace was once possible. Valera stared at it, heart heavy. This ship was part of the original peace plan, she said. It was built to carry both our people to a new station, a neutral ground. David nodded. And now we use it to stop a war. She looked at him. You know what's waiting for us up there, Draxon, David said. And a fleet ready to erase Earth from the stars. She paused. There's one thing I haven't told you. He turned toward her, listening. The weapon, she said. The Zilari built something new. It's not just a missile or a bomb. It's a pulse wave. It destroys identity. Memory mind. David's jaw clenched. They want to erase humanity. Valera nodded slowly. Not kill you, reprogram you. David stepped into the ship. Then we stop it. Not for Earth, not for Zilari. For the people who still believe in something better. As the ship lifted into the sky, Earth Command caught the signal. An emergency alert lit up across the system. Unauthorized launch detected, but no one could stop it now inside the ship. Valera moved to the control center. Her hands danced. Across glowing panels, David sat beside her, quiet but ready. Are you afraid? She asked. Of dying? He replied, no. Of living with the wrong choice. She reached for his hand. For the first time, without mission, without lies, he didn't pull away, above the planet. The Zilari fleet saw them coming. They were small, unarmed, but something about the ship made the commanders hesitate. Then Draxon's face appeared on their screen. She's alive, he growled, and she's betrayed us fully. A command was given. Destroy the craft. As the missiles launched, David activated the final protocol. A message beamed in all directions. It showed everything, the hidden Peace treaty, the erased history, the weapon, the lies. Across Earth and even within the Zalari fleet, soldiers paused. Some whispered, some wept. One ship powered down its weapons. Then another, Draxon screamed into his cums. Fire now. But it was too late. The truth had already reached the people. And truth, real truth, cannot be erased inside the craft. Valera set course for the command ship. This is our only chance, she said. We overload the pulse generator, destroy the weapon from inside. But we won't survive that, David said. She looked at him, eyes steady. Then we leave the war no place to grow. The ship crashed through the shield. Alarms blared inside the Zalari command vessel. Draxon ran to the weapon chamber, but they were already there. Valera faced him first. I was your weapon once. She said, now I'm your ending. David smashed the control unit, triggering a chain reaction. The pulse weapon began to melt, break, collapse. Draxon lunged forward, but Valera stopped him. She didn't fight with strength, she fought with choice. The same choice she made when she jumped in front of the bullet. The choice to love, to protect, to change. And in the final second, she looked at David. He reached out, touched her face gently, no words. Just a soft breath shared in silence, and then everything went white.